Hi, how you doing? Come on in. So welcome. I think probably most of you were in the talk before as well. My name's Stephen Sheriff. I'm the Events and Development Coordinator for Glasgow Building Preservation Trust. And this talk is about a project that I've been working on for the last year called My Historic Neighbourhood. Just before we get started, I'm just interested to see if anyone's got a particular interested in the talk. I can talk about some issues that you're maybe most interested in as we go along. No? Okay, cool. So the project is funded by the National Lottery Heritage Fund and was designed as a reaction to the Doors Open Days audience. It's one of the kind of most critical things about the festival areas for development is our audience, who are mainly white middle class people over the age of 60, 65, which is fantastic, but we really have a lot of work to do in cultivating new audiences. So this project was developed to, specifically to target people from more marginalised areas of the city around Glasgow. Got the slides working, Ev? What if you, yeah, okay. So we concentrated on three areas of the city and also across the city. So in Calton, we were celebrating the 100th anniversary of the Barras Market. In Govan, we were making the case for a World Heritage Site, and in Sighthill, we're celebrating the Radical Wars. And then the bonus round was roller skating heritage across the city. Okay, moving on. So I'm going to concentrate today. Could you move the slide on, please? It doesn't. This pointer doesn't seem. Yeah, I'm going to concentrate today on the Barras. I don't know if you are all aware that last year was the 100th anniversary of the market. So a little heritage bit before we get going. In 1921, the story goes, an astute businesswoman by the name of Margaret Maggie McIver created a safe place for people to trade from their barrows. What started as a minimal outdoor trading post for a few locals would become the world famous Barras Market. More than a shopping centre, the market was a thriving entertainment hub, a meeting place, the beating, banter-filled heart of the Glaswegian community. The heyday was in the 50s, 60s and 70s into the 80s, with many market traders becoming staples of the Barras experience over that period, and that's what you can see up on the screen here. So this is the Towel Man, who's known as the Towel Man. Do you want to have a go? And yeah, there's just so many amazing characters, and these characters would become central to the project. So having come from humble beginnings, by the time she died in 1958, Maggie was a multimillionaire known to all as the Barras Queen. The crowds may have thinned, but the legend remains thick in the air. So we were using the heritage of these areas as bouncing off points for creative projects. The Citizens Theatre, and they have a WAC ensemble, a group of young people, of care experienced young people. And so what we did was we interviewed, or I should say, What's Her Face Theatre Company and the Citizens Theatre interviewed a group of elderly women from Calton about their memories of the market. This interview was then changed into a script, which the young people acted out. Is that pointer working now? No. Okay, if you could just flick through these slides, then you can just see these photographs are the work of Peter Degnan. And we found them whilst working on the project, and he very kindly donated them to the project. This woman, who you can see in the centre, right in the middle, that's Betty. And she infamously once gave Margaret Thatcher a good turning out when she came down to the market. Some cracking hairdos down the market. Actually, there's still some cracking hairdos down the market. Yeah, so the film we've got was directed by David Heyman Jr. I think that is actually the next slide. Yeah.
Bargains and all that, and he'd have planters there that he would throw to people, and he's like, we're getting a bargain, he's like, no, I'm getting it. Some people go home and they got a bag and it was hard wedding in it.
Or if he held something up, he would say, who'll give me £10 for this?
Aye.
Give me £8 for it then. Oh, give me a £5.
I don't even want £5,
Make it worth my
£3.
while coming here, you know.
Everybody will be like, £3, oh, that's a big bargain.
I would say the Barras is the most famous thing in Glasgow.
And the Barras will never come back. It'll never be what it used to be.
Nothing will ever touch the Barras.
See, years ago, you'd say, go round the Barras, you'll get it round there. And I know you've got to move on with the times and that, but I just think that it's a real shame that all that's gone. You miss all the atmosphere. You miss the people that used to be there that you knew.
It was crowded, it was packed.
Aye.
You were all packed together, you know, and as soon as he would shout, all the hands would go up, you know, and you would say, I'll never get that, I can't get to the front.
It was a brilliant
The
time.
donuts didn't come till a wee while later.
Later on, that's right.
You know.
Hot donuts. Oh, they were hot.
And you'd see that when you went in. You know, who's wanting a hot donut? Me!
Mind the lock fine.
That was in London Road, facing the Barras.
Mussels. The Barras smell of mussels. That and damp. I can't remember another smell.
I can think of one, but I'll no say it. Starts with an S and ends with an E. Only kidding.
It wasn't a bad smell, actually. Once there was people there, I went, you wouldn't notice it, but if you went in, there was nobody there, as you could.
I think it was more the smell of old clothes.
Yeah, I think so.
It was a place to be. It really was.
If you wanted anything, you'd get it in the Barras, no matter what it was, you'd get it in the Barras.
You could get a book, you could buy records, you know.
Tools.
Betty's knicker stall. Oh, Betty's knicker stall. They had these big, ginormous ones hanging out, and see if you didn't know them, you'd be like that. Look at the size of them. Because they were always like that, we have them in any size here.
But stalls, I think, would have sold everything. Ribbons and buttons and just anything that could have made them a bit of money, you know.
So everybody knows about the snake oil man.
Aye, he stood in the corner on Moncur Street.
So he stood at the corner just as the Barras started. He was part of the Barras, and everybody knew to go to him if you had a sore bit or corn or anything. He could give you what would cure it, you know. He would tell you how to apply it, you know. So
He was a magic man. He was so genuine looking.
He had his suitcase and a table, and he'd open it up and he'd lay everything all out, and he'd ask you what your problem was. What do you want this for? And you'd tell him. So he'd give you something and he'd say, this is what you use and this is how you use it.
the Birrells, they stayed in Green Street. Kathy had a stall for sheets, towels, all bedding, you know. You would tell about the towels, you know, and they would say, here, feel the quality.
Aye.
So, and the crowd, and then you would go, why, that's all right. What's the price?
Half of it was a con, because they've had planters in there saying, £10, I'll take that. Do you know what I mean? And people would go, oh geez, that must be worth it. And then you'd see them all with their horn up, I want up front for the next bargain. So they go down to £3 and everybody would be buying it. You used to have people to give you it.
And there was a chiropodist. Aye, there was a man that came who was a chiropodist.
Was that the one that was on Kent Street?
Yeah.
He was there for years.
Aye, that's right.
You could go and get your toenails cut and your hard skin seen to, and he was reasonable. They wasn't dear. The only time anybody ever got new clothes, really rigged out, was the first Sunday in May. Do you remember the first Sunday in May?
We'd all get our bonnets on, our hats, our fur coats, and we'd get all dolled up.
The Friday night was a good night. If you get in before 8 o'clock, you get in for 2 bob. And that's where all the talent would be.
Did anybody ever say to you, are you dancing?
Aye, and what was it you used to say back?
Are you asking?
Aye.
I am asking, and I'm dancing.
I'll be it then, no. Actually, you weren't supposed to say no, but yeah, you did.
Talent's on the Barras on a Sunday. Oh, and we went to see the talent, sitting there with our Coca-Colas. Aye. I had that.
Christmas Eve was a special time, because they'd come from all over. Because see, on Christmas Eve, after a certain time, they used to give toys out free. You'd get stuff thrown at you at the end of the night.
There was one man in particular, Glasgow Harry, but he was an Englishman. His patter was brilliant. He always had a van full of goodies.
I had three wens then, and if you went with £20, you were lucky if you had £20. So I could get a doll and a pram, wee cars, wee motors, maybe a wee train set. And Santa's coming in the morning, you know.
As an adult, in hindsight, you think back of all the poverty.
See, you didn't live in the time, so you'll only know what people tell you about it.
Definitely that was
People made the Barras. Everybody was all there because you knew you could go there and get whatever you wanted.
I think the best bargain I got was a dress, second hand, and it was beautiful. And I loved it.
So this was the first element of the project to get going, and we had a way into the community and through our partners What's-Her-Face. What's-Her-Face is run by the amazing Maureen Carr, and so the women that were interviewed were pals of her. I should say also that the project was helped out by another project which I had run the year before through a different organisation called Barras 100, and so we already had a year of works with the community, meeting the kind of key members of the community, which is really important when you're delivering projects like this. I think often these models are devised and like, oh, we've got this amazing idea for this creative activity, and then you go down and you meet people and they're like, I don't want to do that. So there has to be like a lot of work done before you make any of these suggestions. So the next part of the project was the memory gathering. Is the clicker working now, Ev? Okie dokes. Was the memory gathering part, and we held a couple of events at the Pipe Factory in the centre of the market and invited people down to come and share their memories. We had a photographer there, we had a filmmaker there, and we also did a social media call out, I should say, so you can see folks here come and sharing their memories. And after, as I said, like I'd run a year worth of, I don't know if that's Rod Stewart in the middle or not, but I'd run, pardon? Russ Abbott. So Russ Abbott was the guy who opened the Barrowland Ballroom, or is that right? Or there was a party thrown about 25 years ago, and famously he kind of opened up the party. But yeah, as we'd already kind of made our way into the community and folks kind of knew that we were celebrating the Barras, it meant that word had got out. So this was actually the most successful event that we'd ever done at the Pipe Factory, and so many of the old traders came. It was amazing. And as they burst in the doors, one lady in her Zimmer frame, and she came in and she had like all the photographs of her family that used to be traders, and they were just so excited to come and share their stories. So it was really exciting to have them all there. So at this event, as I say, we recorded their memories and we made a wee short film about it. Also at this event, we began our search for some of the stock phrases that the traders used to shout. Things like, "Come a wee bit closer, madam, I don't do mail order." hurry, hurry, Mrs. Murray, you better be quick, Mrs. Dick. These were synonymous with the Barras Market, and that's why you used to go there for the banter. Like I said in the wee heritage bit, it wasn't really about shopping, it was about entertainment. And so the plan was that we would later on be engraving these phrases into the street, but it took a long time to get to that part. There's Rod Stewart again. Oh, sorry, I'm going the wrong way. And we didn't only invite folks to the pipe factory. It was clear that lots of people who had memories of the market weren't going to be able to come to us, so we had to go to them. And this is a community care home, and we went along and recorded folks' memories there. And the lady at the back is Alison Galbraith, and she was a storyteller that we brought along with us to help tease people's stories out. Not everyone's really comfortable chatting about their memories to start off with, but with amazing folk like that, then we ended up getting some really fantastic stories. We also had on board our historian, Peter Mortimer. Peter is a Doors Open Days favourite. He delivers the Calton Heritage Walk, Bridgeton Heritage Walk, Parkhead Heritage Walk. And so Peter was there on the day to give folks an overview of the heritage. And we did make a film of Peter's talk, which I'm not going to show you today. It's about 20 minutes long, but it's on the Doors Open Days or the GBPT YouTube channel, and it's all linked on the My Historic Neighbourhood page as well. So if you do want to check that out, then it is there. We also did tours of the Barras. This lady's Patricia Clark, and she's actually running these Barras trails today and tomorrow, and there actually are still tickets for that if you want to join in. I just wanted to show you this film. So as I said, we did a social media call out for folks' memories as well, and this one was donated to us. So as the slide said, it's 1965, and it's just a home movie. But it's really, really beautifully shot. It's just a wee day out at the Barras, and you can see them all dressed in their finery. Just run for about 2 minutes. But and when it gets towards the end of the film, you start to see that hustle and bustle of the market and the way that it used to be. And you know, these are the memories of this time that we were really trying to eke out with the project. And towards the very end, you start to see some of those really famous traders. Here they are. Come a wee bit closer, mad, but I don't do mail order. Always never-ending supply of lino down there. And you might recognise that we actually used some stills from this in the film before. We were able to get permission from Denny Power, the nephew of the filmmaker. And this is the famous snake oil man. And he would sell a concoction that was a curer of all ills, believe it or not. Okay, so the next wee film I'm going to show you is kind of a roundup of the project. You're going to hear some of these phrases that people donated to the project and just hear some of their memories. I think we need to jump out of the presentation to show this one because something to do with a codec.
How are you this week? That's good.
thanks very much. These are brilliant.
Oh my.
No, he looks terrific.
I'm sure I'm up the back in this.
This is my mum.
That's their stall.
This is my mum's stall.
He sold a bit of curtain to a woman, you know, a Terling curtain, and it had the elephants on it. And she came back the next week and she said, see that curtain you sold me, the elephants, they're upside down. He says, you got the Australian version.
When you had visitors coming to stay, the first place you brought them was the Barras.
Aye. This was the kind of crowds that showed up. This was like a football crowd. It was thousands and thousands of people. And it's often been said that you come to the Barras and what you got was street theatre.
It was a circus, you know, and you could come every weekend and never hear the same thing. Even though the guy or the lady was selling the same thing, you never heard the same thing because the patter from the audience was different, you know. So yeah, it was a day out, basically a cheap day out. If you had money, you spent it, and if you didn't have to.
The whole of life used to play out in the middle of the Barras, you know. We had stalls inside and out, mostly outside. My dad had a fishing stall. My dad used to go in wholesalers, buy all his fishing gear and stuff. And he went in, he says, that looks like waders. I went, aye, it's waders. He says, aye, but they're all left feet. And he went, all right. He says, just give me them anyway. And the guy's like, you'll be back with it? I went, no. He says, well, get rid of it. He says, somebody will take them. So he puts them out in the tea chest. Get your waders, just pick your way through them, pick them out. There were 2 left feet. There were 2 left feet in all different sizes. So people were taking them, right? But then when they took them up the road, they didn't bring them back because they were left feet, because they knew. They were like, I can't afford a good pair of waders, so just take the ones with left feet. They brought them back because they were leaking. And they said, these are leaking. And do you know what they done? Following week, puncture repair kits were on sale. So for your waders, because it was still cheaper than buying a good pair of waders.
And that was my granny. And my mammy's brother, John Burrow, he sold luggage. That was when the glass swans came out. You'll remember them.
Aye, I remember them.
And you put a bit of crepe paper in and water, and the water will change colour inside the swan. Albert was the first one to bring them into Glasgow. And he called them Cathy Borelli swans after my mammy. My granny was a hawker originally, inside.
Wow, you're really good, aren't they?
The wee man in Marius, they were brilliant auctioneers. They days the auctioneers worked for them, say for saying sake, wanting sykes in a pound. So for every pound the traders took in, paid the auctioneer for the spiel.
Mama, she always worked. She only worked at the weekends with her family. And Dorothy and I, we were working.
Yeah.
We went on holiday. We'd saved up all year to go to Italy, so we went to Italy and we come back. And when we opened the door of the house, we fell with the cases or a big pile of tidy bins. My mad started up for herself. So that was her, that was how she started, you know.
Anyway, that's outside.
Very nice.
And that's us to the Barras today, 100 years old. It's been here, it's quite amazing. I'm going to finish it with a poem. This poem was written by a Caltonian man called Matt McGinn, born in Ross Street, 2 streets away from where we are. And he wrote this about the Barras. For Christmas he bought her a wee golden ring, but later it made him embarrassed. He forgot the first thing to turn green in the spring, his jewellery bought at the Barras. Thanks very much indeed.
So the project is called Sounds Like a Bargain. We can just move back to the presentation now. So there's different objectives that we're going for, you know, as we're delivering the project. Really adds to people's well-being, that, you know, being able to come into a room and share their memories, find community. Lots of those folks were meeting people that they hadn't seen for years and years and years, and so I think in that way it was really successful. Other objectives are is the developing skills. So in the first part of the project, with the young actors, they were working with professional directors, professional filmmakers, and they were you know, honing their skills. The next part of the project we delivered with artist Adam Stearns, and he worked with pupils from St Mungo's Academy. And the idea was that they would do a bit of a supermarket sweep around the Barras Market and find some cool objects, and then through Adam's practice, through technology that I don't fully understand, we would make kind of a Barras orchestra with all these mad objects, kind of measuring the sonic harmoniousness, or whatever the word is. But then he ended up using a slightly different method where he used solenoids, and we had all these objects and kind of banging little solenoids off of the objects to make this kind of mad sonic sculpture. So if we could just move slides on. Yeah, and just continue. Oh, I've got a clicker, haven't I? That works now. Yeah, so we're in class with the kids, and Adam was, you know, trying to teach them these various methods with varying degrees of success. But we'd had about 3 or 4 workshops. It was quite difficult to deliver this project because it was through COVID. Teachers were getting really sick. We had to cancel, so it was over a longer period of time than we had hoped. But we went down and we did a bit of a well, we did a sonic. We went round and recorded sounds at the Barras Market, and then you can see that these are some of the objects. And then together they made this sonic sculpture. This video is about kind of 5 minutes long, and it starts off pretty slow, so I'll gauge the room and we'll maybe jump on, depending on how folks are finding it. But what we came up with, I think, is pretty cool, and we put it on show in the Pipe Factory. And it was amazing to see some of the traders come in, and because they could hear their own voices and this mad kind of mashup of objects and sounds, it did kind of turn heads, and people could hear it on the street and came in and see it. So it was just a kind of really creative way to engage with the heritage of the Barras.
Price increase. Switch to Sky Mobile and see how much you can. Minimum term. Other prices may vary. See sky.com/comparison. Terms apply.
It's what's called Majolica, and they did that, these colours.
0.9% APR variable thereafter.
It's going to be a lot of people. Look, this is what I've just been said, talking about it. 8, 10, 5, 6, 7, 8.
Look at your cards there.
There's lots of possibilities. You'll be spoiled for choice and where you can go and what you can do and where you can go next. And you will travel a lot as well. And you really want to do that, don't you? You will.
We actually had people dancing to it when they came in to see it in the picture, actually. Okay, I think we can come to the next one. So, yeah, what do you think? Do you like it? Yeah. we showed it again very recently in the Barras and opposite the cafe, and it did attract some attention again. So the next part of the project was going to be for these pavement engravings, and we held a consultation at the Barras. Here you can see the sculpture in place at the Barras. If you could keep going, Ev. And yeah, chatting to folks about which of the phrases that had been gathered that they thought should be the ones to be engraved into the pavements. You can see on the wall behind you, or at the back there, various mock-ups of what they could look like. So we were looking for people's input into graphic design, into location, where they should be in the market, and trying to take account of where those traders actually were in the market. Should we be putting it down in front of where their stall used to be? It transpired that the traders used to move about every single weekend, so that was a bit of a lost cause. But yeah, we got a lot of responses. If we could just continue moving. Is that me doing it now? Yeah. So this is how we did it. We came in and had folks just put a sticker up for the phrases that they liked best. So you can see some of the ones that were donated. Cheap, cheap, cheap. They're your American knickers, one yank in the raff. Coming by your dollops. Your dollops were your best clothes that you'd wear at the wedding, at the weekend rather. We had quite a lot that were kind of emphasising the grimier side, shall we say, of the Barras. So we've got fresh off the back of a lorry, just stolen, you never bought that here, lots of things like that. But we didn't include any of these because what we want to do is stress, the really the heart and the soul of the area, and not that which is probably not as true as you would think. Some other favourite ones. Yeah, so okay. So it's often a lawyer's wife. If the ladies used to go around the doors and ask folks if they wanted to give any clothes away, and then they could bring them down to the market and they'd be like, it's all for a lawyer's wife, so it must be good. In the hope that someone would buy that from them. Some other horrible, terrible, awful tragedy. This was shouted by a newspaper salesman who used to stand in his soapbox and try and sell the news. So you can see we ended up with about 30 odd phrases, and it was quite a difficult task to narrow them down. But we ended up with, I think, with 8 phrases, and then we decided on quite simple text, and took them down to the market and started to place them down onto the streets to see where they should go. So this is how they look now. We've got 8 of them down on Moncur Street, and just surrounding the Barras sheds. Get your lucky knickers. This was one of my favourites actually. This phrase was shouted by Josie Lucky Knickers, and she had a knicker stall, funnily enough, down on Kent Street, and synonymous with the Baddest, even today, sports socks, 3 for a fiver. So there's about 8 of them. I won't show you them all, just so that you go down and have a wee look. And then we had an unveiling ceremony. We had Bobby the Barman, Gavin Mitchell came down, Alison Thulis, MP, and the lady on the far right of the photograph is actually Josie Luckynicker's daughter, because the press got hold of the story, it went into the papers, and they found it. And Josie is still alive and kicking. She's 96 years old, I believe, and she was dying to come down, but on the day she wasn't feeling up to it. But it was great to have her family there on the day. Yeah, so the next part of the project, I'm not going to talk too much about. We're in Govan, celebrating Govan as a possible World Heritage Site. So we can say that Govan is best known for its global contributions to shipbuilding and marine engineering in the 19th and early 20th centuries. Long before it came into prominence in connection with shipbuilding, Govan was at the heart of the major political, religious and artistic hub of Strathclyde, a Celtic kingdom that flourished during the 9th to 11th centuries. Archaeological evidence indicates that even earlier origin, with a Christian community present in Govan by the 6th century. This makes the churchyard one of the oldest gathering places in continuous use in Britain. The most impressive evidence of this early period of greatness is a large and diverse collection of sculpture known as the Govan Stones. So this project was actually inspired by another film by a filmmaker called Martin Clark and Cara Connolly called Govan Young, and I'd seen it, and basically introduces the kids to the history of Govan, of Vikings, and they're interviewed at the beginning and they're like, what do you think of Govan? He's like, oh, well, it's all right. I mean, I quite like the Asda. And by the end of it, they're like, oh my God, there was like the Vikings that lived here, and they think it's the coolest place in the world. So I think that really demonstrates the power of heritage to engage people and add to their sense of place of their own community. So we brought kids down, and the amazing folks, Emma Semple at Govan Old Church, worked with them. This was a Viking, they did a Viking cooking show, they did a Viking fashion show, and then I think this is a film actually. They all dressed up, and so we had experts there on the heritage, and they were chatting to them all. So they're learning loads, but they're also having a lot of fun. And then we also took them out onto Govan High Street, and they were interviewing passers-by about their own knowledge of Govan as well. Yeah. Okay. So just play this one as well. So this is we made a wee film to kind of to wrap up all the project, but it's not quite finished yet. But this is just some wee scenes from what we were up to. So we worked with 2 primary schools in Govan, and then we also worked with Loop Theatre, who work with adults with learning disabilities, and we had some really fantastic groups, really engaged, and they enjoyed the project so much that they actually used it for their showpiece at Govan Govan Fete. A little bit later on in the year. So it's really great to see, this work having its value and being carried on. So yeah, we can just move on again. The next part of the project was in Sighthill. Is people familiar with the heritage of the history of the Radical Wars? No? So this was the reason that we really wanted to do this project. So the Martyrs Monument in Sighthill Cemetery was erected to commemorate the 1820 Scottish uprising and the executed radicals, Andrew Hardy and John Baird, who lie beneath. Unlike Manchester Peterloo massacre, which is taught in schools and has been made into a major film, the story of the Scottish Radical Wars remains virtually unknown, even to those who live nearby. Local weavers and artisans in the villages of Anderston, Calton, Bridgeton, Tollcross and Dalmarnock organised themselves into radical societies and discussed armed insurrection. Following years of unrest and protest, 60,000 workers from Glasgow, Paisley and Lanarkshire came out in a general strike on April 1st, 1820, and their leaders proclaimed a republic. A few days later, Andrew Hardy and John Baird led an armed band from Royston to Bonnymuir, where they fought and lost a battle of soldiers, and you can see this is them pictured in the centre there. In 1847, the Glasgow radicals gained permission to remove the remains of Hardy and Baird to Sighthill Cemetery and to erect a memorial. While many of their demands, such as fair pay, better working conditions, and universal male suffrage, are now taken for granted, the radical movement laid the foundations for the modern labour movement and working class rights. So, I mean, it's an incredible heritage, and you know, ridiculous that it's not taught in schools. And we worked with the 1820 Society, who've been pushing for this for a very long time, and also with Culture Junction, who are an organisation who work with schools and groups. We worked with the 1820 Society to break down that huge heritage into about 18 phrases, and then the different groups were split up, and each one acted out one of the phrases. So then when we brought everyone together again, they were able to tell a whole abridged version of the radical wars. I think the other element of that was kind of really instilling in the young people that they can have a say in their community, and they can actually make a change. So there's different things going on here. Yeah, I think the other thing just to say about this project is that what we learned, not one of the 110, I think, kids that we spoke to, and none of the teachers had ever heard of this history, despite the fact that that monument in Sighthill, right next to their schools, you know, in such close vicinity. And so it just kind of made it really obvious there's such potential for a really huge project there. And so it is one that I think we probably will go back to, probably just on a single project, just on that history and heritage itself. The next part of the project is the wild card, it's the roller skating. This was developed through my colleague Ingrid Shearer, who unfortunately isn't with us today, but she's a roller skater, and Karen Maley Watt, who also was working with us on the project, started to research or came up with the idea that you know, that roller skating heritage, there's nothing written about it. There's been no real body of research done on it. And so we enlisted the amazing Morag Cross, and she undertook the most comprehensive body of research that's ever been done into the history of roller skating in Glasgow. And when I say comprehensive, I think it's about 200 pages. It was mad, the amount of research that she came back with. And so originally the idea was that we were going to develop a heritage trail and map out all of the roller skating, the roller rinks. Morag has found 40 roller rinks since dating from 1870 up to the present day. And we discovered several crazes around 1870, I think around 1907, 1908, there was another huge craze, 1911, and then, yeah, obviously the 80s, and then more recently in the present day. But they were so spread out all over the city, it was obvious that a heritage trail actually wasn't going to work. So what we have decided to do now is, if you just hold on this slide, Ev, what we've decided to do now is to create a map resource. So it will be on the Glasgow Doors Open Days Festival website, and basically we're going to translate all this research that Morag, Morag, Karen and Ingrid have put together, and there'll be, you know, that amazing resource for schools, teachers, and anyone else who's interested. So the other element of the project, the people part of the project, was provided by People Skate Glasgow. This is Alicia Rogers, and her and her friends discovered roller skating during lockdown. Obviously, we were all stuck in our houses, apart from that 1 hour of exercise we were allowed to do each day, and they made use of roller skating, and they found a huge community during that period. So we can continue on. And so the idea was that we were going to make a film. We were going to incorporate this heritage, as well as so we wanted to teach the young people, or you know, that group, about connect them to their heritage of roller skating, and also give them the opportunity to make a film and to put on an event. So we ended up at the Barrowland Ballroom. Continue on. And you know, a perfect location for the event. But the Barrowland used to host a club night in the 80s called Fantasia, and so it was, you know, it was a really memorable evening. We've just got a few, I think it's about a minute or so of footage just of the event. So popular. Originally we had about 100 places, but so popular that we ended up running it twice on the same night, and we had 500 people on the wait list. Unfortunately, it's not really economically viable to do at the Barrowland Ballroom. Everyone was like that, why are you not doing this all the time? It's a guy, Tom Joyce, who is very central to this project, who manages and runs the Barrowland Ballroom and the market, but it's just not financially viable. So this was kind of a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for people to actually get into the ballroom. We had an amazing DJ, Boothel the Warrior, selected by the People's Gate Glasgow group, and they wanted to update it. They didn't want to call it a roller disco. They wanted to call it a skate party, and have like more relevant music that they loved at the event. So the next and last film that I'm going to show you is Skate the City. And this was made by Alibatia of Mambo Video Production and GBPT.
What comes to mind when you think of roller skating? Concrete ramps and skate parks? Glitter balls and banging disco beats? Instagram videos of fancy footwork? Chances are, at some point in your life, you have laced up a set of boots and attempted to wobble around a skate park or rink. And as any newbie will tell you, the hardest part of roller skating is the ground. But still we persist. So what's the appeal of the wheel? People Skate Glasgow are a group of jam skaters who found one another during the COVID pandemic in 2020.
It honestly changed my life, like especially because of lockdown. I always say that it helped me keep sane.
I met them all when I was out skating, so one person sees another person skating, then you'll start chatting and get to know each other, and then before we knew it, we had a group chat of about 150 people, didn't we? It was pretty mad.
It seems like a city that's very like antithetical to like roller skating because again there's no good spaces to skate outside. It seemed like a really weird place for like a community like this to grow, and the fact that there's even a history of roller skating in Glasgow absolutely blew my mind.
Roller skating has its origins in the world of theatre. It was developed in the late 18th century to mimic ice skating on stage. The earliest skates were of the inline style with all four wheels in a row, a bit like an ice skate. Quad skates with the wheels on the corners of the shoes arrived in the 1860s. These allowed skaters to turn and pivot more easily. Roller skating has a long history in Glasgow. The earliest known rink was established in 1876 and they used the Green Dyke Drill Hall. At this time, indoor spaces were preferred for skating, and not just because of the weather. Before tarmac and concrete surfaces, our roads and public spaces were mostly bumpy cobbles or beaten earth, hardly ideal for skating. 3 more venues swiftly followed and Glasgow was hooked. The next wave of roller mania hit in 1909 and Glasgow committed in grand style. By 1911, there were over 20 rinks spread across the city, from Shettleston to Springburn and Rutherglen to White Inch. A tiny handful of venues still survive from that era, including Bostock's Zoo Rink, now home to the Chinatown Market and Restaurant building on New City Road. Skating was a fun way to socialise, and rinks provided a form of escapism and healthy exercise, where skaters and spectators could be entertained by brass bands, special events and displays of fancy skating. Women too found their freedom in the rink. By the early 1900s, there had been some relaxation to the tight social norms that dictated acceptable pursuits for middle-class ladies. Rinks were a safe, informal and fun place where they could gather with their friends without judgment.
When I think back, sometimes I can't believe I'm out dancing in front of people in the street. Like, I would never have thought, like, a couple of years ago that I would have came out and done this. So it's given me like so much more confidence as well.
There's nothing more fun than skating around and having like a little kid look at you like you're a Disney princess. And it's like, you know, if one day you could be like me, if you just ask your parents nicely for a pair of skates or something like that.
One such skater was Glasgow-born Dolly Mitchell. Mitchell hailed from Pollokshields on the south side of the city. She specialised in trick, fancy and acrobatic skating. In 1909, at the age of 14, she became an instructor for the Zoo Rink in Glasgow. Dolly's impressive skating abilities were lauded in the press. Skating remained popular throughout the 20th century, especially among children. However, it was the rise of disco in the 1970s that heralded the next great wave, this time enhanced with sequins, glitter and spandex. Nights such as Roller-Rama and Fantasia at the Barras Ballroom opened in the 1980s, and this catered for the new craze of disco and skating.
We're doing something that like so many people before us have done, and like we get to be connected with them just by putting on our skates. We're all doing it for the same reasons. We love dancing, we love going really fast, we love like having the attention of onlookers and everything like that.
We're a part of it now, so like going forward, we'll be part of the heritage, I guess, like in years to come, maybe.
Skating is once again having a moment, with gyms and other indoor activities being put on hold during the first wave of the pandemic in 2020. Some retailers reported that the demand for skates rose by over 1,000% in 2020. Will it last? Who knows? Those shiny new boots might end up at the top of the wardrobe, but history tells us we won't need to wait long before we get our skates back on.
So I think the only other element of the project that I'm going to tell you about is the digital archive. We're working really closely with the Education Department at Glasgow City Council. And this kind of developed from the digital festival that we did in 2020. All of the participants created these amazing films, but then where do they go? So the lottery have funded us to put this additional part onto our website, and our hope is that Doors Open Days will become part of the school calendar, and that schools across the city, if they're want to find out about heritage resources in their area, they'll log on and we've got a map and they'll see, okay, so there's a film about skating and there's a film about the Barras or whatever, and all these other amazing resources that the participants have made. I think, yeah, I'm just going to wrap up there, but I'd like to thank you all for coming, and if you do have any questions or comments, I'd really love to hear from you where areas of the city that you think we should be working in next. This project model, it's kind of the first one that we've delivered like this, and it's something that will continue to develop. So really interested to hear from anyone that's got any ideas of how it might go in the future. But thank you all for coming.